shape may vary. It would depend on the objective. But we all are about setting up a unified system, and for sure we'll do that. Why, for instance, the Russian Academy of Sciences needs that? Well, I'd say that this is a kind of focused. For instance, the patent expert review is not rocket science when the patent is ready for that, but the patent goes through different stages of maturity or preparedness or readiness. And we have to estimate the patentability, at least the basic one, at an early stage. So this problem is not easy, because in essence, people who work with patents know that better than us. There are certain sections. And if it is over-regulated, then there'll be no space, there'll be no room for fundamental mathematicians in this country. They would leave the country. And how strange it may sound, still this science is also performing a social function. In my opinion, we have to obtain some integration mechanisms, and then we have to very cautiously use that. I think that eventually we'll make some steps forward. Thank you so much, Vyacheslav, and correctly said that interaction may help us in solving everything. Our section and all the speakers, these are the people who we are cooperating a lot, and we expect some results from that. And the next speaker is Mr. Dyachenko, head of the IP department of the Moscow Innovative Cluster. And we really are working closely with the Moscow Innovation Cluster and Moscow Center for the Healthcare Support, in which premises we're holding the conference. This is how the digitalization helps you in your work. Yes, please. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And really, quite recently, last November, we arranged a competence center for intellectual property. And in essence, the very objective of that institute was to grant the whole spectrum of services in the IP sphere, starting from such enlightenment functions as what an IP is about, why a company needs it, what privileges it gives, and how we may take stock of the IP in the business, and ending with how to market the IP results. And performing all these objectives and tasks would not be possible without close cooperation with the Russian Patent Institute and the Federal IP Institute, and without digitalization of all these processes. How it all works and what we have. So the first stage. We know, unfortunately, that many of our companies, especially the beginners, are not knowledgeable about what IP is about, how to obtain the IP rights, how to make sure that the IP stays with you and preferably brings certain benefits to you. And for that we have a section at Moscow Knowledge Database portal, and we're preparing different leaflets and publish them there, doing that ourselves and by means of the outsourced experts. It's a very good reading, but in our age, most of the information is perceived visually. Therefore, we try to use Iveco potential, and apart from these leaflets, we also are publishing webinars and video lectures. You see that we are cooperating very well with the Federal IP Service Authority and the Ross Patent Authority. So here you see the number of visits paid by the visitors, by the viewers, and this is what precedes, or at least has to precede, as Vyacheslav correctly said, has to precede any R&D. This is something that has to precede the application for a patent, and we see that the search is most demanded for, not just in the area of IP, but this is the most demanded for service on iMoscow platform among all the services available there and all the departments that are there. Annually, we see that more than 270,000 unique users are taking advantage of that search engine. And we are extremely grateful to Rospatent for the integration of our search engines, which help our users to take advantage of the Federal IP Institute and Rospatent capacities. Another option which we are going to develop is the opportunity. For instance, once you looked for patents and you see a technology which is of your interest or any product that caught your eye, you are able to get in touch with the patent holder and to leave an application for the use of the IP right or the IP results. At the moment, this is being done just for the sake of the patents which are held by the members of our cluster. After we've shown that IP property has to be protected and we told the viewers how it might be done, we're telling the people who can do that. For that, we have the Patent Attorneys Institution, meaning that we have gathered information from more than 122 institutions which provide patent services, and we invite other institutions to join us. More than 200 patent attorneys are brought together, and more than 20 different services may be granted and provided, not just to help you protect your IP rights, but also you may assess your IP rights, and you may enjoy a broad range of legal services in the area of IP. Before, it used to be just a window branding of the services. Now we can offer a navigator in the area of IP. A couple of weeks ago, we launched that service, a beta version of it, and now just like before, you would visit a marketplace and select, for instance, a mobile phone, setting certain desirable parameters and getting a list of outlets or shops which could sell you this or that smartphone. Just with the same token, you may use our portal and set certain features or parameters, the type of first service, type of the intellectual activity and the country and branch of science, for instance, if we speak about inventions. Then you can get the list of organizations which are providing such services online, and you will be able to get in touch with such organizations and order a service that you have selected.
The next step in developing this service would be a navigator on foreign patents. After we have launched this patent, and this will happen in June, after we have launched this patent, we will be able to help you not only to learn how to ensure legal protection for your intellectual property in particular countries, but also you will be able online to calculate the estimated costs when and what payments you have to effect. So basically, we're going to help companies to budget their expenses on foreign patenting. And last but not least, to select a foreign patent attorney from a database who will be able to provide this service. And thus will also help you to save costs because you will be contacting these people directly. Thus, it will save you foreign patenting costs. And now, understanding that foreign patenting costs are also quite an expensive exercise, we have launched this year, this April, 2 more support measures. Alexei Forson has briefly told about them. One is the support measure related to patenting in Russia. Basically, any entity of the Russian small and medium business community will be able to apply to the Moscow Innovation Cluster and to get compensation of 75,000 of their costs. This system for application and application consideration is fully automated. You don't have to submit any papers. Thus, you will see that the time it takes from filing application to the day you see money in your account is only 2 weeks. And owing to the fact that we're performing additional measures aimed to integrate this system with the Rospatent integration system, thus, we'll be able to check automatically whether this particular patent belongs to the applicant that has turned to us, and this patent meets all the requirements. As a result, this time will go even more down. I think this is the quickest subsidy that exists in Russia, at least in Moscow. And last but not least, as regards foreign patenting, yes, the support measure here is more complicated because it is related to providing innovation vouchers, to selecting an accredited patent supporting company, the company that will provide you support with respect to foreign patenting. But this measure is also automated. It will also be purely electronic. We don't need any papers. And we have already been receiving applications from partner organizations. 2 organizations have been certified today. So, as a result, you will be able to get partial compensation of your costs for foreign patenting. Not only if you're a Moscow-based small and medium business, but also if you're a university or an educational institution. Furthermore, we intend to carry out close integration with the information system Rospatent, and we'd like to thank them for this. In particular, we're referring to the system of right turnover. This system will help you to start selling your IP assets. So this will be a first attempt at a patent exchange that will help you to automate turnover of IP results in Russia. This brings me to an end. Thank you very much. I encourage you to come to us, to use our services, and to offer us various fields for improvement so that our digital services become even better and easier to use. Thank you, Oleg. In your second last slide, you brought us to the next topic, which we're going to discuss. Our next speaker will be talking on a whole system, which we call the digital Rospatent. We have discussed this on many occasions today already, but also in other conferences, that there are 15 new systems which we are now introducing or have introduced already. And Pavel Mosolov, our next speaker, is going to tell us today about the digital platform, which will enable you to turn to Rospatent for information. Pavel Mosolov is my deputy in charge of digitalization. Pavel, I've got a whole list of questions that I most frequently asked when we introduce this platform. I'll read them out. Maybe you will be able to answer them right away, okay? So what algorithms are in this service? What service does this platform provide? How many people have used it already? What results can we talk about already? And now, digitalization of services, is it an endless process? What improvements are you going to introduce in the area of intellectual property? What challenges have you faced? What is the feedback from your users? I'm sure that you already have answers to some of the questions in your presentations. Now, over to you. Thank you, Oleg. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As regards the search platform, I would like to dwell in the last bit of my presentation. I will even show some results to you. But I would like to begin by telling you about the principles of the digitalization of our agency and the work that we have been performing to create an ecosystem for intellectual property, an ecosystem that would be capable of responding online to the requests it is receiving, would be capable of developing and introducing innovations. Well, we should realize, this is in reply to your question as to how long can you be transformed. Well, it is a stage-wise process, an incremental process. As Vyacheslav has said, you can take two programmers and ask them to write something within 1 month and hope to receive a result. But you may face some challenges and some concerns, in particular with respect to intellectual property. Anybody who has ever dealt with it knows this very well and understands this, how subtle this process is and how careful you should be when you try doing something about it, in particular about digitalization and automation of this process. As we were just beginning this digital journey, our main purpose, our whole purpose, was clearly to increase the level of satisfaction of citizens and agencies from the services that we provide. The main task, as we have already said, was to transform the interaction between the applicant and the agency, and to bring it into the digital environment. Now, this approach ensures equal rights to all the customers of the system located in various regions of the Russian Federation, in particular with respect to the access to the government services. After our government information systems have been introduced, we will be able to provide government services on a 24/7 basis. We will also be able to offer you online registration over your applications for your intellectual property. We already have an ensured access to the global patent information system. Another very important point was for us to ensure reliability and security of the government digital services. In a similar fashion, another question of no lesser importance was to reduce costs of the applicant, both financial costs but also the time it takes to register. As the digital information is planned, as we were planning digital transformation, we clearly proceeded from the requirements and needs of our customers, both researchers but also startups or big business, both federal and regional authorities, education and research institutions. This is why, as we were designing the system, we tried our best to automate every step that the applicant would have to make, and to take the applicant through a modernized journey. Every step would have to be improved along this customer journey. In particular, the creation of the technology concept, creation of the research journey, and further collaboration with the agency, and finally, commercialization of the intellectual property results. Now, I'll tell you very briefly about the architecture of the system and how the digital transformation looks. As my boss has told, we have already been developing and introducing 15 brand new digital services and information systems. 11 services are government information systems that meet all the requirements with respect to digital security, ensuring the security of confidential data and personal data. All of our digital projects are based on the state-of-the-art technology stack, which includes AI technologies such as computer vision, OCR, the text analysis and the translation, the graphic image classification, but also big data processing and the distributed register processing. All the services that provide are fully free of charge. All the services that will have an outside environment that will be of interest to external users will be fully accessible and absolutely free of charge. One more thing, all the services are built on the same infrastructure. We have focused in particular on creating a single data model. Furthermore, we also paid special attention to using open source code-based software and domestic developed software. I will not take a lot of your time to tell you about the AI principles, because I will show you a number of systems that have the external interface, and it is there that I will tell you more about the technologies and AI that we have been using, in what system and why we did that. Then the thing I would like to mention right now is that we have been able to automate routine processes, and as a result, experts can now focus on tasks of greater importance. The first system I would like to tell you about is the Government Information System online ROS patent. This system is the heart of our client-centric approach. This system offers all government services in electronic form. It ensures that the applicant can file the application electronically. It helps you to monitor the process. Now, this is a brief demo of the functionality of the portal. As you can see on the screen, you can file your application, you can monitor the status of your application, and at the end you will see that you will be able to calculate the fee you have to pay, and you will be able to get in touch with an expert. You will be able to provide highly skilled technical support if required. Now, one thing I would like to tell you about the readiness of the system and what you can expect. We have been receiving a lot of requests with respect to integration from the Moscow Innovation Cluster, but also from other environments. We have had two attempts. During round one, we implemented a number of services. So we did the first round of integration, but then later we changed the functionality slightly. As a result, our program interface, that's the API that we use to do integration, has also changed. Now, this is here round 2 of the integration. I hope that within the coming weeks we will be able to test our interaction more closely. Now, the second information system, government information system, that I would like to tell you about is the expert assessment of the individualization means. It is a search system, and this system does the search both by the image of, but also by attributes. To do a search based on the image of the logo, the system uses AI approaches, namely computer vision technologies. The system takes into account not only the visual proximity of the objects, but also their conceptual proximity. And in doing so, the system can deal with a whole lot of elements. Furthermore, the system also does search on the array of data on industrial design principles. This search has a very special aspect to it. For instance, when one object is described by a number of images, then we use a neural network to do the search. And what we have done, we have taken into account a principle that can take into consideration all the aspects and all the images of such an object. I will show you now. We have recorded a video that will show you how the system works.
Just prototype.
Sorry, some videos take just one click to start, while others take a lot more clicks. Now, the government information system aims to support the process of expert assessment based on the images offered, images found for application. This includes both indexation and the search proper. During indexation, experts describe the image found for application. They create lots of tags that characterize this particular object and then do the search based on these tags. Furthermore, if we focus on the search proper, now we are offering search based on word elements. It can be carried out both based on phonetics, on the spellings, and on the semantics. As regards spelling, it aims to identify the visual proximity. With respect to phonetics, we use transcription. As regards semantics, this search takes into account acronyms, synonyms, and antonyms.
Next system is the Informational System of 3D. This is an in-house system designed for expert reviews and comparison of 3D objects. It doesn't have any outside access, but let me tell you about that. After the Federal Law 217 was enforced, the authority allowed the patent applicants to submit 3D models. What it allows them to do, so first of all, the expert may in every detail see how the object is visualized, and cross-section of the object may be built. This is the first thing that the system offers. Further on, actually, you can do search and comparison of 3D objects between them. A combination of mathematical methods and AI methods are being used. For every 3D model, a descriptor would be set up. For 3D models, this is a kind of a histogram, meaning the lengths between different accidental points on the surface of the object, which might be compared by means of mathematical model methods and by means of AI methods. As I've already said, let me stress that this system has been operated industrially, meaning that our experts are using it. The results are quite good. The scope of objects is huge. Rospatent accepts actually the following objects: prototypes, models, trademarks, and at the moment we got about 60 applications supported by 3D models. And the inflow of such 3D models is not big, but the database is not big either. But the system is designed for the future. It means that we expect that there would be more such objects, and this number would increase. And finally, to conclude my remarks, let me tell you about the platform-based search. I will show the queries which might be done on the platform. The platform is an IT system based on the software and IT infrastructure which provides for the collection, processing, storage, reproduction, and granting access about the IP results. Let me note that through the search platform, Rospatent provides for a unique opportunity of open access to the database, global database of the patent information. Let me show in a nutshell the functionality of the platform and some specific queries. This platform offers the service of similarity search. Using semantically close entries, and also the genetic databases are being available, and you may search by the non-patented foreign and Russian information. The results would give you a picture of the technological trends. You may assess the patentability and the novelty of the IP results at the early stage of the development, and therefore you may think about future marketing strategy. This is the real queries that you may type in and the obtained results. As for the interface of the system, it is quite simple. We believed it is user-friendly. We thought that is very much user-friendly. And now we get a lot of requests from the users to make interface even more friendly. Next slide. It is not a brief statistics, but just a screenshot about the clickability. We launched that platform on March 29th. In essence, over the months of its work, the platform is not in the industrial operation, so this is just a pilot project which engages third-party experts. So the third-party users now may test the platform. And now we are getting a lot of applications, a lot of requests. Most of the feedback is quite positive. We receive letters with gratitude, but there is some negative feedback as well, mainly related to the fact that the users failed to master the interface. We thought that it is quite user-friendly, but alas. I think that we'll launch a kind of a webinar. As for the interface is concerned, we are adjusting that. We're fixing some, doing some debugging, and an updated system with a new interface would be provided for public access. And it would be launched full-fledgedly in the months to come. We have to process all the requests, and after that it would be available full-fledgedly. I'm done with my presentation. Should you have any questions? Well, I think that I've answered almost all the questions. Well, you answered most of the questions, and should there be any, and should we have some time, I think that we'll torture you with questions. To follow up this topic of informational systems, we have more reports and more presentations on that. I think they are kind of a first night ones, brand new ones. Our next partner in terms of IP work is the International Association of Technology Transfer. Mr. Filimonov is its director. I know that you have kind of a national window of open innovations. Well, actually, I'm going to take a mic. I have a presentation to support my pitch, and we have a clicker. Well, actually, the title is more about input substitution, but, well, this is what we badly need at the moment. I was attentively listening to the reports of the previous speakers and was speaking about the digital ecosystem and science and technologies. We seemingly are speaking about the digital platforms and transformation, but I'd like, and I apologize for turning my back to you, but this is better for me. So I would like to touch two aspects. Whether science and technology are enough, can we add the word business? Can you take your seat there? Well, I mean that. Does science and technology make sense without engaging business partners? Whether digital platforms are viable without people who are ready to work with it and without the organizational mechanisms which are supporting that. What I'm going to speak about is, and I will somehow curtail the slides, but I would like to touch upon these two factors. Let me say a few words about the association. We are probably one of the biggest associations, competent one dedicated to the technology transfer, mainly in cooperation between science and business. We have about 35 members, about 40 academia are our members, and the founders are the Federal IP Institute and some other institutions. So the digital platform is our backbone, and we are helping business to look for technologies. In essence, the business would publish their requests, technological requirements, and these are the logos of our members, not all of them certainly. And on that platform, we are helping business to look for technologies, and we're inviting developers so that they could offer something in response to that. So this is not a project database, but this is a database of requests or applications. On the left-hand side, you see the sources of innovations. On the right-hand side, these are the consumers of innovations. And we try to bridge the right and the left-hand parts. In a sense, we try to act as a one-stop shop window. Okay. This is a one-stop shop approach to bring together business and science. We are unique in that sense. You can turn to the ministry, but the ministry is not competent in that. And other development institutions, such as Kolkova, have other missions to attain. Our audience lies somewhere in the left. SMEs, R&D institutes, and academia, and we're working with them using different means, not just digital ones, because our target audience is very diverse, very sophisticated, complicated, and you have to talk to that, communicate to that. After that, it would be ready to come to your platform, realizing that this is just an interface. And in essence, this is the national window of open innovations, which does exist starting from last April. I think that it has become operational starting from September, we have more than 70 industrial partners who are regularly publishing certain technological requirements and requests, and the developers are proposing something in response. Academia, our priority partner, working through experts, we are engaging them. We have streamlined process, so these are the cases of the requirements, but this is a far cry from the terms of reference. So these are the science-intensive objectives, and it is not clear how to tackle with that. This is a kind of a pre-purchasing work or pre-purchasing phase, meaning that our industrial partner finally gets some candidates to do the R&D work. So these are not the people who would transfer technologies, but for instance, today we discussed another request. Some pharmaceutical company was looking for a team competent in the development and production of mononucleus antibodies. That's a very relevant high-tech drug which has been produced abroad, and we have to substitute that in Russia. The slides which I've already shown to you imply a lot of human communications. We really do a lot of events, and not only our members are part of that, but multiple universities are also part of that process. Our main objective is to bring together all these audience, and our business regards it as a potential source of innovations. And I already said that our audience is much broader than just the member body. The work with that body becomes more and more important, and once we're speaking about all the information systems and digital platforms, we keep thinking that we have set up such a platform and it is user-friendly and everyone would be eager to come to us to use it, but no one would come. And moreover, most of the people would never learn that it is available. And digital transformation process is taking place, at least as I heard, and something has to happen. But to make sure that these systems are working and transforming this sector in which they are operational, you have to do a mammoth work to attract users. And this is what the association is doing. We are spending a lot of efforts on that, but this is not enough, as it turned out. For the sake of input substitution, we decided that we need systemic users who, for instance, upon receiving a request, for instance, about the mononucleus antibodies, where some liquids are required, and the business, which is our customer, expects a prompt answer from us, some high-quality propositions, etc. And our audience is so much diverse and is not prepared for that. And you have to have some institutional partners. And you have to develop them and to invest into them. Such members for us are the Technology Transfer Institute, which has necessary funds and necessary human resources, and we are partnering with them, meaning that they assume the responsibility to develop the regulation. For instance, once actually you get a request, you have to make a proposition in a week's time or in a 2 weeks' time. Or, for instance, you have to inform us about your production partners. So it means that certain commitments arise, and we, in turn, are training them, and some requests are confidential, so this is a two-way street, which results in setting up a kind of a media which is not digital. And it's not that it is not demanded for, but it's not being used fully because the market is not prepared for that. Everyone has to get used to that. In essence, digital transformation, the word transformation is more important than digital. So we have to transform this process of how the request translates into the response. And this implies hundreds of organizations. This is a really mammoth task. And ideally, we have to have this one-stop shop or single window when some real technological problem would be brought to us, and at the end of the day they would get a solution with the necessary links of the chain, certain technologies, production sites, probably co-funding that might be offered. And in my opinion, this is something that cannot be digitalized. But still, digital is very important for that, for different reasons, including the fact that this is a common general trend. And in my opinion, this process will never be fully digital, although this is something that we have to attain. So my presentation probably is far from being digital, but the last thing to show to you now. Okay, let me get back. Moreover, when we're working with the teams, when we are processing their propositions, we try to engage experts who would work with the teams, who would be looking for the members of the team, and we explain to the customer why this is so much necessary. It will never be like, for instance, you publish a request and immediately you get a response. So this is not a bidding procedure, so this edition is more sophisticated. That's it. I'm done with my presentation. So thank you so much. I'm not sure whether I met all your requests.
Thank you. I enjoy the way our discussion is developing because we complement each other by our reports, by our statements, even by answering the questions. And now Nikolai Popov is going to take the floor. We have this patent analytics practice, and our colleagues at the project office have been developing some of the tools, and they're going to report, make a certain presentation on the methods for assessing R&D results. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to tell you that I'm so glad that we see so many new tools. We see that this set of tools has been developing, growing. We see new tools for interaction, for new information system. 10, maybe 12 years ago, you wouldn't believe me. I took 400 compact discs. I had to copy them manually on my PC just to research the legal status of Russian patent documents. Whereas today, I can see Russian products emerging, and we, in our service sphere, and this brings me from the tool environment to the service environment. So we at the service environment find this a very important signal, a very good support in our operations. We are a project office, which is quite an unusual department of the Rospatent, because we are engaged in technology consultancy. We help companies to select the right area for research and for investments in the technology sphere. As you may have realized, we work very closely with patent information. We have been doing so for many years. There are two arguments that will forever be there. People pay for patent information and pay a lot. If you're going to register patent abroad, you will have to pay a big amount of money. And two is that it is very easy to process patent information, and it is very easy to work with it. Now, these two arguments are enough to explain why we work with this. We have been working for 6 years at the project office. We have carried out about 80 projects in various areas. We have two key projects, the industrial patent landscape and the patent intelligence. But I will tell you about different aspects. Taking into account the topic of this conference and the venue, I will tell you about yet another product. And we have 18 products in total. And this product that I'm going to introduce to you today is the expert assessment of R&D, and its name is R&D Entourage. We set the task several years ago when a major Russian company came to us and told about their problem. They said that they received dozens, maybe several hundreds results of R&D, very well described, but the cost of every such R&D project was several hundred million rubles. Maybe this is not a big amount for a big company, but when the number of such projects reaches hundreds, even a big company has to be able to select in which project to invest. And they told us how they have been doing this on a regular basis, how they would assess the relevance, whether this was a novelty and what effect they could expect. And they dealt with about 20 indicators. An expert, maybe a group of experts, would sit down, would fill in this table. For relevance, let's say 8 out of 10, and with a brief comment. So they would assess all these parameters, and they would comment briefly why they thought the way it was. They would sum this all up, and they would rank these 300 proposals based on the number of points that each such R&D project received. Now, there was something clearly missing in that approach. Maybe you need an objective approach because you're only based on expert approval, but you need something that would either confirm or refute a hypothesis that that particular research needed funding. And what we came up with, well, first we carried out whole research as to how to deal with the traditional indicators such as relevance, novelty, etc., and to transform them into future indicators, and then to break them down into patent analytics actualization of patent families. And this is the model we use for formalizing our tasks. And we break this down to a very minute detail. I will not tell you about every detail, but this is what we received at the end. This was an easy and quite a quick product. Now, each of the R&D will receive a profile that would consist of keywords, patent classification codes, a certain period for analytics, relevant patents. So structured information would be offered at the input, either from FIPS or from a client. And the process that we had to carry out to create this album of analytic results, this album will show us, on one hand, the area in general. Each of the analytical aspects would be based on the whole area of search. Let's say we're talking about catalysts, but also it would offer a certain solution that would reflect the specific nature of this research, the research in question. For instance, we're talking about catalysts of a certain brand or a certain grade, and we're talking about the specific nature of this research attempt, and then we'll compare all these albums by 30 various aspects, and we would understand whether this particular research would be relevant for the whole world or not as relevant. Now, this product has a number of effects. For instance, it supports the generation of complicated research and development programs, would be used for adjusting investment portfolios, for pre-investment research, etc. We had already developed a mechanism where we have been able already to sell a number of packages. And this is a subscription-based project. A company would subscribe about 50 packages annually. What we first do, we train the operators. We teach people how to generate the profile of the research, how to be able to read the album of analytical aspects. Then we'd create a list of analytical recommendations. And what we do at FIPS, we do the search. Then we coordinate interim results. We generate the album of analytical conclusions, and then the client would, within 15 days, receive this. Well, long story short, the client would receive such report on a weekly basis. There are companies that would place orders for 30 to 50 such reports. This is just to give an idea. We have a very complicated, very expensive report at the industry that takes 4 months to develop. And when you need to assess something very quickly and easily, this helps companies to come up with a very quick conclusion to be able to prioritize particular research projects. So this is a project that we can tell you about, and I hope that we will be able to offer this project also to this medical institution where we're now talking. This will help the center with their projects too. Thank you, Nikolai. Yes, indeed. As part of the agreement that we have signed today, but also as part of our collaboration with the Russian Academy of Sciences, we will continue using this tool. And I'm sure that the result will be of use for everybody. You know, I've been thinking that we have established a new rep office of FIPS at the Sirius Center on the Black Sea. We have been already developing our activities there. And today, Andrei Moskvich is with us. And he's going to tell to make the most complicated report today, because he would like to share the experience of working with information resources in particular industries. And we will be happy to listen to what Andrei Moskvich has to say. Andrei Moskvich, head of Center for Intellectual Property and Technology Transfer of the Sirius Technology University. Over to you. I didn't have any presentation. First I wanted to show a presentation, but then I thought no, because I would either have to show either 3 slides, or I would have to address all the products that we have worked with, so which would not be a good idea. You know, I would like to stress that we have been discussing 2 types of feeds, either digitalization or optimization. We're talking either about digitalization and automation in essence, or we're talking about formal digitalization, where you only need to prepare all the papers properly and meet all the formal requirements. The products we've seen here are very useful from the point of the formal approach: paper processing, paper recording, timing, meeting a very single requirement. But then there are other projects which we also hope to start using, products that help you to make a decision based on the essence of the IP. In essence, we work mainly with IT, pharma, and aerospace. IT is about Yandex, pharma is BioCAD, and aerospace is Airbus and Bombardier. We have done this for them, but we did this on paper, we did this manually, we used to draw, we used to read the schemes and to make decisions. But my biggest conclusion, we started with Airbus and Bombardier, then with Yandex, then with Pharma. So, talking about making decisions in essence, maybe the biggest takeaway is you can understand to what extent that this service will help you to save time, so that you can think what you need to think about, because this understanding what you need to focus on is probably the most important thing in science, to be able to filter off something which you don't need. So when you accelerate the pattern search or pattern analysis, if you're missing 2 weeks and then you have to finalize everything in 3 days, then the risk is too high that you made the wrong selection, made a wrong conclusion, selected the wrong document. But if you compare this against the formal work, where you need to be able to file everything on time, that meets all the requirements, then it clearly accelerates the process. It saves you lots of time, and you save labor costs. For instance, as we were thinking whether we hire 3 paper processing clerks, and each of them would be receiving 100,000 rubles, I would buy a system that would cost $50,000 a year, so that it would be able to help us to optimize the processing of 500 to 1,000 applications in 10 countries. So it was easier and cheaper to hire clerks. But there's always a problem with the clerk, that a clerk can make an error. And the question is, how much would that error cost? In pharma or in aerospace, such an error could cost you, well, you draft and you aircraft, and you invest 1 billion, hundreds of millions of particular currency. So the error of a clerk will cost you this amount. The same applies to pharma. You fail to file a document, you don't have a monopoly to a particular substance. As a result, the cost of this error is very high. So it doesn't matter how much this digitalization system costs. Clearly, you introduce this into these 2 industries. Whereas in IT, where the cost of an error is much smaller, because the life cycle of product there is much shorter. You can make an error, you close the project, you have spent a certain number of man hours, and then you move on. You kill yet another project, and you launch another project. Simple as that. So it all depends on technology. Now, the main opportunities for filing applications and for working with various countries over this patent, you see the main opportunities, and it is clearly very useful, and you see new experience and new experts in the market that are capable of doing this. You don't need to spend 1 year on just training them. You can find someone who worked in consultancy, and then you hire this person, and this person works with this. Whereas for search systems, we received a request, for instance, a very short time ago. The company said, we're developing this particular material. We cannot think of anything else. Could you tell us what else is there in the world in this industry, in this area? Well, this was a philosophical question, but who's going to develop this? Is it us or is it you? So you want us to do pattern search based on the documents, and then we give you a composition of this particular material. And talking about pharma, you will receive particular compositions, particular formulations. So who's going to receive the money as the researcher? Who will be publishing an article? Who will be the author of the patent? Well, actually, we realize that in a case like this, the experts in the patent sphere have to be able to work in the support function. But then another question arises. How well should a person reading a patent document be qualified? We have done certain selection. We have selected particular pharmaceutical compositions, and we hand over this result to these researchers, and they continue working with this information. What we have often seen is that we hand over this document to these mid-level researchers, but the top-level bosses haven't had enough time to go into the detail of the project, and they kill the project. So all these digital services are very useful. But another important aspect is to be able to present this information, to be able to use the system to save the time of the researchers on the time it takes them to read, to process, and to show the right things to their bosses. So your system will be able to provide this information because both we at the university, but also you deal with hundreds and maybe hundreds of R&D projects every day, which get very good funding. But the question is whether you really need to fund them, or maybe this R&D was done already 2 years ago by the former mentor of these current young researchers, checking such things as authors or researcher teams and who worked with whom. We did that on a regular basis in aerospace. We looked at who was the author of a particular project in a particular country. And you could do the search by the name and find a connection and understand whether you can work there, where there are potential rights or research projects. We haven't done anything like that in Russia yet, but we hope that we will be able to do so using your technology. I'm done, basically. Yeah. Well, you have 2 minutes more. Well, one thing I'd like to add. If you can offer this service, when we were attempting to commercialize our technologies, we saw that, let's say there's a patent for a particular high-level solution in IT or in pharma. But the solution for the solution to work, there are lots of technologies below it. If we would like to commercialize, you need to commercialize not the solution on top, but you need to commercialize the entire chain. And people fail to understand this entire chain. So what I did, I offered this Yandex Technology Map, where I described every single technology from the very lowest level all the way to the technology that a person sees on the interface, and then to the trademarks, the logos. What surprised us that after we have done this, we saw that we can sell anything, because we would not be able to sell this picture on the top because it is so interrelated with everything else that everything else is our know-how, which have not patented and which we would not like to share with anybody. It is so expensive that we would not be able to compensate the cost by just selling one service to the user. But if we can offer technologies where we will be able to see the entire chain, then I think this will be an instrument that will be of extreme interest for everybody. Thank you, Andrei. Now you have been able to fit your time. You have convinced us definitely of one thing. You need to buy a very expensive information system and hire 3 clerks. Dear colleagues, I didn't do a lot of talking, so we have time for 2 questions left. If you have 2 questions left, then we can ask them. Any questions to the speaker? If you don't have any questions, then I would like to thank everybody for participating in this discussion. We really had a very lively discussion. I enjoyed listening to it very much. I enjoyed moderating this session a lot. And I would like to wish you all the best on the Day of Intellectual Property and wish you best of luck in your work, but also good health. Because we're here at the Healthcare Center, so I wish all of you a very good health. Thank you.